Welcome, the Lord's chosen. When the light in you starts burning too bright, even the blind start throwing shade. It's strange, isn't it? You didn't become famous, but somehow your name has started echoing in rooms you've never entered. Studies show that when people can't control you, they try to control your reputation. And you, chosen one, have become their favorite topic of small talk and secret envy. They don't realize it yet, but their whispers are just free marketing for your evolution. You didn't ask for attention. It just arrived, uninvited, confused, and a little jealous. One moment, you were minding your business, watering your peace, and the next, someone's cousin's friend suddenly had a theory about your life. Funny how people who once scrolled past you in silence now speak like they discovered you before the world did. But here's the truth. They're not angry because you changed. They're furious because you didn't wait for their permission to. You upgraded quietly, and that silence hit louder than any announcement. And now, the same ones who doubted you are treating your glow-up like a scandal. So sit tight, because today we're going to peel back the layers of why they can't stop watching you, talking about you, and secretly wishing they could become the very energy they mocked. The glow-up isn't revenge, it's revelation, and yours just went viral. Number 1, you became the mirror they spent their lives avoiding. That's the real reason your glow-up bothers them so much. It's not just that you've changed. It's that your growth quietly exposes everything they've refused to face within themselves. You don't have to say a word. Your evolution says it all. When you walk into a room now, something in them tightens because your presence reminds them of every excuse they ever made. For a long time, they were comfortable with you being the underestimated one. It kept them safe from their own insecurities. They could cheer for you in small doses, just enough to feel superior, but not threatened. But when you started healing, evolving, and refusing to play small, that comfort cracked. Suddenly, the person they used to compare themselves to became someone they couldn't compete with. Your success didn't bruise their ego. It shattered the version of reality they built to protect it. They're not seeing you anymore. They're seeing themselves reflected in what you've become. Every boundary you set, every level you reach, every piece you protect, exposes how little they've done with their own potential. That's the power of growth. It forces others to look at their own stagnation. But not everyone wants that kind of honesty. So instead of admitting their discomfort, they project it. They turn reflection into resentment. They start finding flaws, spreading rumors, or twisting your story, not because they hate you, but because they can't stand what your light makes visible. You remind them of what's possible, and that's uncomfortable for people who've chosen comfort over courage. They can't handle the idea that someone who came from the same struggle, the same start, or even the same pain, decided to evolve while they stayed the same. Your glow exposes their shadow, and instead of stepping into their own light, they'd rather dim yours. But here's the irony. The more they talk, the clearer their reflection becomes. Their criticism doesn't shrink your shine. It only proves how much they see it. You didn't become a mirror to shame them. You became it by simply growing. And if your light unsettles them, it's because they've forgotten they have one too. Number 2, they spoke against you because they couldn't speak within themselves. Every rumor, every side comment, every subtle jab was never really about you. It was about their own unspoken frustration. When people haven't done the inner work to face their insecurities, they project them outward. You simply became the easiest target because your growth highlighted what they've been avoiding. The truth is, your name became their outlet. It gave them a sense of relief to criticize you, because it distracted them from confronting the parts of themselves they've buried. Talking about you was their therapy, their confession disguised as gossip. It made them feel powerful for a moment, like they were in control of something, when in reality they were just running from their own reflection. You stirred something in them they didn't know how to express. Jealousy mixed with admiration, resentment tangled with curiosity. Deep down, they saw your rise as proof that they could have done more with their own life, but they weren't ready to admit that truth. So they talked, because talking is easier than transforming. It's strange how the same mouths that once stayed silent when you struggled now have so much to say about your success. That's not coincidence. That's guilt speaking. They sense that you've reached a level of peace and purpose that can't be faked, and it shakes them. They don't have the words for what they feel inside, so they turn that emotion outward as criticism, mockery, or sarcasm. But beneath it all is an ache for self-acceptance they've never had the courage to chase. You became the topic of conversation because you represent something their spirit craves: freedom. Freedom from self-doubt, from pretending, from settling. They're not mad that you're shining. They're mad that they dimmed themselves for so long. Your confidence makes their silence feel louder. Your growth makes their excuses feel weaker. So they do what wounded people do. They try to make the light look like the problem. But the irony is, the more they talk, the more they reveal. Their words don't expose you. They expose themselves. When people can't speak peace within, they speak poison without. And even then, their bitterness only confirms one thing: your existence has struck a nerve they can no longer ignore. Number 3, you were supposed to stay in the version they could tolerate. That's the truth they'll never say out loud. People liked you best when you were unsure of yourself, when your confidence was still in training, when your dreams were small enough not to threaten theirs. They were comfortable when you needed validation, when you asked for advice you didn't need, when you played down your light to keep the peace. The moment you stopped performing that role, you stopped fitting their comfort zone. That's when the shift began. Your growth exposed their hidden expectations. They didn't want you to fail completely. They just didn't want you to rise too high. You were meant to stay in the lane they created for you, predictable, polite, manageable. But life had other plans. When you started evolving, they couldn't handle it because it disrupted the unspoken hierarchy they built in their minds. They saw themselves as the teacher, the one ahead, the one who had you figured out. Your glow-up shattered that illusion, and now they're scrambling to make sense of it. It's strange how people support you until your success requires them to grow too. They loved the version of you that didn't challenge their insecurities. The moment your energy shifted, they started calling you different, distant, or full of yourself. What they really mean is, you're no longer who I can control. You didn't outgrow people to hurt them. You outgrew the roles that kept you small, and some people can't forgive you for no longer being dependent on their approval. Your transformation reminded them that they've stayed the same. That's a hard truth to face. So instead of celebrating your progress, they disguise their discomfort as criticism. They'll say you've changed, as if that's a flaw. But that's what you were supposed to do: change. You evolved while they repeated patterns. You healed while they rehearsed complaints. You moved on while they memorized the past. The funny thing is, you were never asking for permission to grow. You just stopped asking for permission to be yourself. And that alone broke the unspoken contract they had with you. You were supposed to stay in the version they could handle, but you didn't. You became someone they can't define anymore, and that's what truly unsettles them. Number 4, you stopped asking for permission to exist, and that shifted everything. The moment you stopped performing for acceptance, the whole dynamic changed. People who once fed on your uncertainty suddenly had nothing to hold over you. You stopped explaining yourself, stopped overthinking every move, stopped watering yourself down just to be understood, and that independence unsettled them. Because when someone no longer needs validation, they become unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. Most people are addicted to being liked. They chase approval like it's oxygen. But when you stepped out of that cycle, you broke an invisible rule, the one that says you must keep shrinking to make others feel secure. Your silence started speaking louder than their opinions, and that's what disturbed them. You stopped asking, "Do they get me?" and started knowing, "I get me." That's a kind of confidence that can't be faked or borrowed. It's magnetic, but it's also intimidating to those who still rely on applause to feel alive. When energy stops seeking validation, it becomes self-generating. You no longer wait for people to clap. You create your own rhythm. You no longer chase attention. You attract alignment. That's why people start acting strange when you evolve. They were used to you bending, explaining, proving. Now you just are. And that stillness, rooted, grounded, unapologetic, exposes how fragile their sense of self really is. The truth is, your glow-up isn't just physical or material. It's spiritual. It's what happens when energy reclaims its direction. You stopped running toward validation and started radiating from conviction. That's why your aura feels different now. You don't need confirmation because you've already decided who you are. The people who can't handle that will call it arrogance, when it's really liberation. They're not mad because you've changed. They're mad because they can't use your old insecurities to control you anymore. You're no longer performing in their emotional theater. You walked off their stage and built your own. And now, the same people who once critiqued your every move are left whispering, wondering how you found peace in a world obsessed with applause. The answer is simple. You stopped seeking permission to shine. You just started shining. Number 5. Their hatred is just grief in disguise. What looks like bitterness and anger on the surface is really mourning. Not for you, but for the version of you they could influence. They're grieving the control they once had, the comfort of being needed, the power that came with your uncertainty. You were once someone they could guilt, convince, or redirect. Now you've outgrown that dynamic, and it feels like a death to them. They lost access, not affection. They lost authority, not love. And people rarely handle that kind of loss with grace. That's why their reactions seem irrational. One moment they're angry, the next they're dismissive, then suddenly nostalgic about how you used to be. It's not random. It's the emotional chaos of someone realizing they no longer have a role in your story. They don't know how to connect to this newer, freer version of you. So instead of admitting they miss the control, they translate it as resentment. They call you distant, cold, or prideful because it's easier than admitting they can't reach you anymore. Every rumor they spread, every sarcastic comment, every attempt to downplay your progress is a form of coping. They're trying to resurrect a version of you that no longer exists. You broke the emotional pattern that used to benefit them, and now they're trying to pull you back into it through negativity. It's not hate, it's withdrawal. They were emotionally fed by your doubt, and now that you've healed, their source has dried up. Growth doesn't just change you, it forces others to confront the loss of who you were. And for people who depended on your weakness, your strength feels like betrayal. But you didn't betray them, you just stopped betraying yourself. They're mistaking your boundaries for rejection, when in truth, you finally chose balance. So when they act like your glow-up offended them, remember, it's not your light that hurts them, it's their inability to follow it. Their hate isn't about your success, it's about their grief. They're mourning the end of a power dynamic that no longer serves either of you. And the irony is, the very evolution they resent is the same one that finally set you both free. Number 6. You didn't climb, you transcended. That's why they can't figure you out. You didn't follow a predictable path that others could study or copy. There was no blueprint, no straight line, no applause along the way. Your journey wasn't about effort alone, it was about transformation. You didn't just work harder, you became something else entirely. That's why people stare in confusion when they see you now. You don't fit the formula they were taught to follow. Most people think elevation happens through visible steps, education, connections, credentials, the right timing. But your growth didn't come from any of that. It came from surviving seasons that would have destroyed others. It came from breakdowns that stripped your ego bare. It came from nights when you had nothing left but willpower and something sacred whispering, "Keep going." You didn't level up. You went through a spiritual metamorphosis. And that kind of evolution can't be explained with logic. That's why your glow feels supernatural to them. It's not luck and it's not pretending. It's the energy of someone who has burned through layers of pain and come out purified. You don't move like someone chasing success. You move like someone who's already found truth. And that's what unsettles them. They can't track your source. They're used to progress that's measurable, predictable, safe. But your transformation didn't come from strategy. It came from surrender. You stopped trying to make it in the world they built, and instead started building from your own frequency. You let the old versions of you die one by one, until only authenticity remained. That's what transcendence really is. Not rising above others, but rising beyond what once limited you. You stopped climbing ladders and started dissolving ceilings. You didn't win by their rules because you weren't playing their game. Now they look at you and sense something they can't define. You move differently, speak differently, even attract differently. That's because you didn't just change your position, that you changed your dimension. You became proof that some people don't get there by climbing. They disappear into the fire, and when they return, they are the flame. That's what your glow truly is, the residue of transcendence. Number 7. Their obsession is the evidence of your impact. You know you've shifted something when people start studying you like a mystery they can't solve. The constant analysis, the endless comparisons, the whispers disguised as conversations. It's not random. It's what happens when your existence disrupts what people thought they knew about life, success, and identity. You didn't just surprise them. You challenged their entire worldview. They thought they had everything figured out until you showed up and made the impossible look effortless. They can't stop watching because you represent proof that limits are optional. Every time they try to box you in, you outgrow the box before they even finish labeling it. They're fascinated by how you keep doing what they can't logically explain. You're supposed to fit the system, yet you keep rewriting it by existing outside its rules. That's what disturbs them most. You expose how much of their truth was just tradition in disguise. You've become their case study without trying to be. They're dissecting your choices, your mindset, your timing, trying to find the formula, but there isn't one. Because your path wasn't built on imitation, it was built on intuition. They can't trace it because it's not intellectual, it's spiritual. Your movement comes from alignment, not approval. And that's something their egos can't decode. The obsession isn't admiration, it's disruption. It's the discomfort of realizing that someone they once underestimated now embodies everything they secretly wish they could become. They're not curious because they care. They're curious because you expose the limits they've accepted as law. Every success of yours feels like a personal contradiction to their excuses. You make them question the narrative they've been defending for years. But here's the irony. Their obsession only amplifies your reach. Every time they mention your name, every time they try to analyze your path, they spread your energy further. They're unwilling promoters of the very thing they can't understand. You've become the living reminder that evolution doesn't need permission. It just needs courage. So when you notice people watching too closely, don't take it as hate. Take it as confirmation. They wouldn't study you if you weren't shifting something in them. Their obsession isn't your problem, it's their awakening. And your impact is the proof that you've already transcended into influence without even trying. Number 8. They're not mad at your success. They're mad it's you. It stings deeper because they never saw you as the one who would rise. You were the quiet one, the overlooked one, the one they laughed off when you spoke your dreams out loud. They had you neatly categorized. The underdog, the struggler, the one who meant well but wouldn't make it far. So when you actually did, when you evolved into the version of yourself they never believed in, it broke something inside them. Their pride couldn't process the reversal. It's not that they hate what you've achieved. It's that they can't stand that it came from the very person they thought they'd already outgrown. Your success forces them to face their own misjudgment, and that kind of mirror burns. It exposes how blind they were to real potential, how small their perception truly was. They can't admit that they misread you because that would mean admitting they were wrong. And for some people, that's harder than failure itself. You remind them of every time they laughed at someone too soon, every time they doubted someone quietly rising, every time they bet against sincerity, authenticity, or humility and lost. You weren't supposed to be the one who won. You weren't supposed to evolve past their opinions. But here you are, glowing, grounded, and unreachable. And that's what twists the knife. Because if you could do it, it means they could have too. And that realization turns their envy into quiet fury. It's a strange thing about human nature. We don't resent success when it comes from strangers. We resent it when it comes from people we once felt superior to. They can applaud celebrities all day, but your glow hits closer to home. It exposes how much of their disbelief was really self-doubt in disguise. You became living proof that they settled too soon, that comfort made them complacent. So no, they're not mad at your success. They're mad that their ego lost the story. You were supposed to play the background, not become the headline. But your growth rewrote the script. Now they're stuck watching, forced to applaud through gritted teeth, wondering how the person they underestimated became the standard they secretly measure themselves against. Number 9, you trigger what they pretend to be. The confidence, the peace, the control they showcase, it all starts shaking the moment you show up. They built an image of strength that only works when no one real stands next to it. You walk in, grounded and unapologetic, and their mask starts to slip. Your energy doesn't compete, it just reveals. Because what you carry isn't performance, it's presence. You're not trying to appear sure of yourself, you actually are. And that truth makes their facade impossible to maintain. They don't whisper because they hate you, they whisper because they feel exposed. Their curated identity starts to look flimsy under the weight of your authenticity. You don't have to boast or prove anything, you just being yourself becomes confrontation enough. That's why they roll their eyes, throw subtle shade, or call you too much. It's projection. You trigger the parts of them that wish they could live as freely as you do. They've spent years perfecting the art of pretending, pretending to be unbothered, pretending to be healed, pretending to be confident. But your energy doesn't play along. It reminds them of everything they've faked so well that even they started to believe it. And that's the problem. You don't validate their act. You make it irrelevant. You're walking proof that authenticity still wins, that peace doesn't need to be performed, and that self-assurance doesn't come from validation. When you enter their space, you become a silent test of who they really are. If what they project is genuine, your presence won't bother them. But if it's an act, your existence becomes unbearable. They'll call you intimidating, but what they really mean is disruptive. You disturb the illusion that keeps their egos safe. You remind them that real confidence isn't loud, it's lived. The truth is, you don't trigger them because you're better. You trigger them because you're authentic. And authenticity is dangerous to people who've built their identity on pretense. They can't confront you without confronting themselves. That's why they talk behind your back. They can't handle what looking you in the eye might awaken. Your realness is their reality check. You don't expose them intentionally, you just stop pretending, and that's enough to shake their entire performance. Number 10. The more you rise, the more their masks slip. Success has a way of exposing truth that words can't. When you were still finding your footing, everyone wore their best face, supportive, humble, understanding. But the higher you climbed, the more the truth began to leak through their smiles. That's what elevation does. It doesn't just refine you, it reveals everyone else. Your glow became a light too bright for falsehood to hide under. It burned away pretenses and left raw emotion behind. Envy, resentment, insecurity, admiration twisted with disbelief. People will tell you they want to see you win, but only until your win reminds them of their loss. It's easy to clap for someone you still feel above. But when that person surpasses the limits they set for you, the applause starts to fade. Your growth disrupts their illusion of control. They can't hide behind polite words anymore, because your evolution calls their intentions into question. Were they ever truly rooting for you, or were they just comfortable with you staying beneath them? Rising isn't just a blessing, it's a revelation. You start to see who was connected to your heart and who was connected to your struggle. The ones who celebrated your vulnerability now resent your victory because they preferred the version of you that needed them. They'll say you've changed, but what's really changed is the dynamic. You no longer orbit their comfort. Your confidence exposes the insecurity they kept hidden behind smiles and small talk. And that's the paradox of success. It doesn't create distance, it reveals it. The more authentic you become, the more dishonest energy falls away. You start to see who loved you for your light and who loved you because it made them feel brighter by comparison. When you rise, people either ascend with you or unmask themselves trying to hold you back. There's no in-between. So when their masks start slipping, don't chase explanations. Let the truth show itself. Their discomfort is just honesty finally showing its face. Your rise didn't change them, it exposed them. And once you've seen someone's real energy under pressure, you can't unsee it. That's the gift and the curse of elevation. It reveals everything that was pretending to be genuine. Number 11. They can't unsee your becoming. Once you've transformed, the illusion they built around you collapses. You no longer fit the box they placed you in, and that unsettles them. They used to define you by your past, your mistakes, your hesitations, all the things that made them feel comfortable standing next to you. But now you've evolved beyond the story they wrote for you, and it leaves them disoriented. They can't go back to pretending you're average because your growth is undeniable. It's written in your energy, your choices, your peace. Even in their denial, they know something irreversible happened. And that knowledge gnaws at them. They remember the version of you that doubted, that second-guessed, that over-explained. They miss that version because it was manageable. Now you've become self-assured in ways they never imagined possible, and it quietly challenges everything they thought they knew about power and purpose. You became proof that transformation is real, that evolution isn't reserved for the lucky, but for the willing. And that's what eats at them. The knowing that you did what they told themselves couldn't be done. They'll act indifferent, maybe even dismissive, pretending your growth doesn't impress them. But that's just pride's last defense. Deep down, they've seen too much. They can't erase the image of who you've become. It replays in their mind like a reminder that potential ignored eventually turns into pain. You embody what they avoided, and that makes your presence haunting. You're not their competition. You're their unfinished potential made visible. That's why some people stay distant even after you've done nothing wrong. Your transformation confronts them in silence. Every boundary you hold, every calm response, every success that doesn't beg for validation becomes a mirror, reflecting what they could have been if they had chosen growth instead of comfort. They can't unsee it, and they can't undo it. So they live in quiet contradiction, pretending you're ordinary while knowing you've become extraordinary. Your evolution redefined how they see you, and now they have two choices: grow or resent. Many choose resentment because it's easier. But either way, the truth stands. You've crossed a threshold they'll never reach, and the sight of your becoming will always remind them that they stopped where you decided to rise. Number 12. You outgrew the language they use to define you. They're still trying to describe you with words that no longer fit, repeating stories that no longer apply. They talk about the old you because that's the only version they ever understood. The one who doubted, second-guessed, and played small to make others comfortable. They can't comprehend your evolution, so they keep speaking from memory, not reality. That's why their gossip sounds hollow and outdated. They're describing someone who no longer exists. When people can't evolve with you, they cling to the past because it's the only place where they still feel relevant. They try to freeze you in a version of yourself that benefits their narrative. It's easier for them to believe you changed too much than to admit you simply grew beyond their understanding. Growth exposes who's truly watching and who's just remembering. And right now, they're stuck remembering, unable to accept that you've moved from being a character in their story to being the author of your own. Every rumor, every label, every half-truth they repeat is just a way of holding on to a version of you that made them feel secure. They're not talking about you. They're talking about their comfort zone, the one your evolution destroyed. They can't speak your name without revealing how far behind they've stayed. Your growth made their language obsolete. They're using old definitions for something that's become multidimensional. That's why their words no longer sting. You've transcended the vocabulary of small minds. You stopped explaining, defending, and translating yourself into something digestible. You started speaking a new language, one of peace, purpose, and power, and not everyone was meant to understand it. That's the quiet beauty of transformation. It doesn't require announcement. It just renders old interpretations useless. So let them keep talking. Let them keep describing the ghost. Their words can't reach who you've become because you no longer exist at that frequency. You outgrew not just their expectations, but their ability to define you. And now, when they try to speak of you, all they do is echo a past that no longer holds your name. You didn't just change, you evolved beyond translation. Number 13, their fury confirms your fulfillment. The anger they feel toward you isn't accidental. It's energetic proof that you've shifted into a higher state of being. You've moved into alignment, and that kind of peace radiates in a way that unsettles those still living in inner chaos. It's not that you did anything to provoke them. It's that your calm contradicts their confusion. Your stability exposes their instability. When your energy rises, their illusions start to crumble, and rather than face their own imbalance, they channel it toward you. You became living evidence that peace isn't weakness, that joy isn't luck, and that happiness can't be faked. And that truth disturbs them. They've built entire identities around stress, gossip, and emotional turbulence. You walked away from that noise and began vibrating on a different frequency, one they can't access without self-awareness. That's what their fury really is, resistance. You're no longer participating in their drama, and your absence from the chaos feels like rejection to those who feed on it. It's spiritual physics. Energy reacts to energy. When someone stuck in confusion meets someone rooted in clarity, friction happens. You represent what they could be if they let go of their bitterness. But letting go requires humility, and not everyone is ready to face themselves that honestly. So instead, they direct that discomfort outward, labeling your peace as arrogance or indifference. They don't hate you. They hate the mirror your presence creates. The irony is, the more at peace you become, the louder their frustration grows, not because you're provoking them, but because your fulfillment makes their excuses harder to believe. Your energy exposes what's out of alignment around you. You're not triggering them on purpose. You're simply resonating higher. And in that vibration, everything false starts to shake. So when their fury surfaces, don't take it personally. Take it as confirmation. It means your growth is real. It means your spirit has expanded beyond the frequency of fear and pettiness. Their anger isn't about you. It's about the truth your existence reveals. The more fulfilled you become, the more their illusions collapse. And that collapse isn't chaos. It's transformation trying to happen through discomfort. Number 14. You became the proof that energy doesn't need validation to be legendary. You didn't chase attention, yet it found you. You didn't beg to be seen, yet your presence became impossible to ignore. That's the difference between chasing fame and embodying purpose. One runs after recognition, the other magnetizes it naturally. You stopped trying to be noticed and started being real, and realness has its own frequency. It travels. It vibrates. It calls attention without asking for it. That's why they talk like you're famous. Your energy made its own announcement. You've reached a level where people can feel you before they even understand you. Your name enters conversations not because you forced it there, but because you've become a reference point, a reminder of what alignment looks like. You're living proof that authenticity doesn't need marketing. When energy is pure, it speaks for itself. That's why you don't need the crowd to validate your glow. The frequency of your spirit has already gone public. You're not in competition, you're in circulation. People wonder how you keep attracting opportunities, attention, or admiration without trying so hard. And the answer is simple. You stopped vibrating from lack. You stopped performing for approval and started existing in truth. And truth, when lived fully, is louder than any form of promotion. You don't trend because you're viral. You trend because you're vibrational. The universe recognizes alignment, and once you hit that rhythm, everything that matches your energy naturally gravitates toward you. That's why some people can't understand your rise. They think visibility is proof of effort, not frequency. But your story isn't about effort. It's about embodiment. You became what most people only talk about. You didn't market your essence. You mastered it, and that mastery made you magnetic. So now, whether they admire you or envy you, they feel you. Your energy has become part of the collective dialogue, not because you demanded attention, but because your evolution created resonance. You are the proof that when energy is aligned, it doesn't need applause to echo. You're not chasing spotlight. You are the light. And that's why they talk like you're famous. You're not trending. You're transmitting truth in motion. Every era births a few souls who don't just rise. They shift the atmosphere. You are one of them. You didn't beg for relevance. Your energy demanded recognition. You didn't force your way into conversations. Your frequency entered them. The very fact that people can't stop speaking your name, even in your absence, is proof that your becoming has left an imprint on their perception. You are no longer a participant in their narrative. You've become the storyline itself. What they call gossip is just the universe echoing your growth through unready mouths. Their whispers are merely proof that your evolution is being witnessed on a collective level. You've outgrown explanations, outpaced expectations, and outshone limitations. Not because you sought validation, but because you became the embodiment of self-certainty. You became the evidence that alignment is louder than attention, and that peace carries more weight than performance. They're not just reacting to your glow-up. They're mourning the system of control that your growth dismantled. You've shown them that fulfillment is possible without applause, that spiritual wealth outlasts material wins, and that true power doesn't announce itself. It simply arrives. Your silence started speaking a new language, one that only those who've done the inner work can understand. And that's why they're obsessed. Because deep down they see themselves in you, the version of them that could have risen but didn't. You are not famous for your name. You are recognized for your essence. You are not trending online. You are resonating in consciousness. You are not trying to prove anything. You've become the proof itself. Your existence has turned into a mirror, forcing others to face who they are and who they could be. And that reflection, that undeniable awareness, is what makes your light unforgettable. So let them talk, let them analyze, let them rage, because while they're speaking about you, you're still ascending. Your evolution has already outpaced their perception. You don't need to defend your transformation, it's self-evident. You are walking proof that destiny doesn't ask for permission, it just becomes. If this message spoke to your spirit, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below about the part that resonated with you the most. Your energy here helps this movement grow. And trust me, we're only just getting started. Stay blessed always.